trying to record this video. I went outside to try to record it, and then I got distracted because I met somebody and we just went on a whole journey. We were just talking, and then I tried to record it again at night and the frogs were going outside, and then I'm trying to record it just now and it just doesn't feel right. So I'm just gonna talk instead of trying to like force it or try to set up the vibe or anything. I'm just gonna just say what's on my mind and what I'm thinking about. This is about being outside. This is not just about being outside, but it's about the lessons that you learn when you're sitting in stillness outside and why I feel it's important. So I'm gonna finish out the conversation I was having with myself and still share it, just because I feel like I owe it to myself. I feel like I deserve it to myself to start sharing the stuff that I feel called to share. But part of this is about loneliness and how my loneliness has kind of disappeared. Now, like, being alone doesn't feel lonely to me anymore. I used to spend a lot of time having conversations that didn't necessarily mean a lot to me. They would kind of make me feel annoyed or irritated, and I would just leave the interaction feeling upset and not really like I was growing or like I was being empowered. I'm just a lot more selective now with how I do choose to spend my time and with how I show up in my interactions. I'm a lot more intentional with the way that I communicate with people, the way that I listen to them as they share their stories, the way that I share my own stories. And I'm also a lot more selective with the ways I choose to spend my time. I don't know if I just said that, but not just in the interactions I have, but also in just what I do. I try to be a lot more present now than I ever have been in each step of my day. And it's getting easier over time. It's always going to be a work in progress. I think for me, that's part of the point of my journey, is to just always get better at being present and to do things throughout the day that make me feel present. But with talking to people and with the interactions that I do have, they always teach me something, even if it's not like an individual interaction. I notice things that kind of just stand out to me during an interaction, and I don't know what it means at the time, but then in my next interaction something else stands out to me, and then over time the things that stood out to you, they just start to click, and you have oh, that's why this stood out to me, oh, this is why I kept on picking up on this thing. And then you have a lesson. But that lesson only comes whenever I spend time by myself. Those lessons only come to me in stillness, whenever I'm sitting alone, whenever I am reflecting on the interactions that I've had. I am not able to learn if I'm constantly interacting with people. I have to be interacting, taking time alone. Interacting, taking time alone. And my time alone has to really outweigh the amount of time I spend with others. I feel like when I'm alone, I'm able to realize things. Whereas before, it's kind of like a passive understanding. You're like, yeah, I get that. Like if someone were to mention it, you'd be like, yeah, I understand. But it's not something that you live by. It's not something that you have made real. And by realize, that's what I mean, is to make real and to make into your reality and to integrate as a part of you. And I'm also curious to hear an extrovert's perspective, because I'm very much an introvert and this is the way that I need to do things. And so I'm curious about what it's like for somebody who learns from people with people, because I'm not that way. I feel like you need other people and other experiences to activate lessons within you that you already intrinsically know, but it takes the alone time to really allow that activation to unfold into your life. And I believe this because we are energy beings. As humans, on an energetic level, we are just very dense concentrations of energy. And because of this, we carry such ancient knowledge. Kids are so fucking smart. Their brains are much less developed than ours, but they have such knowledge within them. They teach you stuff that you're like, I guess I have known that all my life. I personally believe that they're geniuses because their brain hasn't had time to try to rationalize their understanding of things. And for us, our brain has had time to try to make sense of things, but it will never be able to catch up to the ancient knowledge that we carry. It will never be able to comprehend what we know. And also, it is this process of rationalization that causes us to bury what we already know, to bury our ancient wisdom, our ancient knowledge. We begin to rely on thinking and knowledge to help us learn and to help us problem solve and to help guide our lives, and it can to an extent, but there's a certain amount of knowledge and wisdom that you already carry that your brain cannot ever provide to you. The energy that we're made up of is old. It's old, and it knows stuff, and it's been places, and it's here now, but we are so much more than what we think we are, and there's so much more inside of us than what we think is there. In Western culture, we're not taught that this is a form of knowledge. We're actually really taught that it is not a form of knowledge. You know, people say stuff like trust your gut, trust your intuition, but what they really mean is do the thing that's gonna make you the most money, do the thing that's gonna, like, it's not like, it's always about like taking that next step and doing the thing that's the hardest thing, but it's still about like making you as a machine better to make you make more money for whoever's making money off of you. So even though we're told like you have your intuition and whatever, we're never taught what it feels like, what it means, what it actually is, how to find it, how to listen to it. And because of this, a lot of people are made very uncomfortable when people talk about energy and people talk about intuition. It just sounds so like far out there, it sounds so far-fetched. People get extremely uncomfortable with this idea of being an energy body, even though we are energy bodies on a physical level. And I think people are uncomfortable with it because we've been taught to be uncomfortable with it. Instead of trying to like investigate what could that mean, people instead shrink it down into boxes and fit it into their narrative of the world. Also, I think shrinking things down, I think shrinking things down into boxes is an essential function of the brain, and I think it's important that we do so after we consider another person's perspective. But after we consider, I feel like you can use the information that you learned either to reaffirm your current belief system or let something about it change. But consideration will only, like genuine consideration of someone else's perspective will only deepen your belief system, even if the core part of your beliefs remains the same. This is different from reaffirming your belief systems by way of automatic rejection, like automatically rejecting someone's ideas because you assume you'll disagree. That's not genuine consideration. Also, when I say you, I'm not talking to you. I'm saying it's a generalization. We all need different belief systems to function, and I think all the belief systems have an element of truth to them, and so none of them are correct or incorrect. Personally, my beliefs about the world change pretty much every day, and any new information that comes to me, I integrate somehow. Like, even in disagreement, I find something new that I do agree with, or that like does introduce a new way of thinking to my view of the world. And this like constant deepening is just, it's so satisfying. I feel like satisfying is a perfect word to explain it. And it's, never ending. And so I don't expect for my future self to even necessarily agree with what I'm saying now. I just wanted to promote a different way of thinking. That's all. But as these dense bodies of energy, we are so much like nature, because we are nature, but we are so much like what we perceive to be like other nature, like trees and rivers and mountains and forests. We see so much wisdom in them, and we see so much. You stand next to an old tree, or you stand at the top of a mountain, and you just feel so much knowledge. You feel so much depth, and you feel almost like a heaviness of like the lessons they carry. And you're next to like a little young tree or a mountainscape that is not as old, or so, like there's just a difference in the heaviness of the knowledge that and the lessons that they've experienced over time. And I believe that it is not really time, but it's stillness. But I also believe that the stillness over time is a form of deepening. Like the longer you have in stillness, the deeper you go in nature. And because that is reflective of us, I feel that the longer we spend in stillness, the deeper we go. Yeah. So let me re-say what I just said, because let me re-say it. The effect that time has on stillness is deepening. Like deepness is the effect that time has on stillness. And I believe that that's why older land formations, it doesn't matter the shape of them, but their age, you feel a difference in their energies. You feel a difference in the knowledge and the wisdom that they carry. And I feel that that's the same with humans. You call someone an old soul, what do you really mean? You mean they carry the weight of a lot of lessons. Okay, I'm sitting editing and I realize time is just lessons being activated. Like, you need other people and other experiences to activate lessons you already intrinsically know, but over time it's just an activation of those lessons. And that's just what time does. It's just activates stuff that's already there. Like, I don't get it, but in my mind that's how it works. Do with that what you will, because it doesn't make any sense, but I don't understand what visualization was in her mind. I don't know what she's talking about, to be honest. But there's something there. I can see a seed, but like, it's not with me right now. But I do understand that the resistance of time due to the human brain is what makes us feel like we've gone nowhere. Living and existing in time as a human concept is what makes us feel like we've made no progress. Like, you can live an entire life and feel like you've gone nowhere. And that is because you're existing in human time and not in universe time. Because universe time is not about duration, it's about deepness. And there are certain like moments where a lesson is like asking to be activated. Like, there's certain level of deepness that's asking to be tended to or reckoned with, however you want to phrase it or put it or visualize it. But whenever we don't, for example, water the seed, like I haven't, like whenever we don't do that and whenever we push it to the wayside, that's when our time feels wasted. That's when we feel like we've done nothing, gone nowhere, because we haven't gone anywhere. But what I'm trying to say is that the heaviness and the weight of the lessons that are carried by old land formations reflect in you what you already know in your own stillness. And they just serve as an anchor for you to be still and for you to investigate and to learn and to see what is being dug up. And so instead of facing your challenges and facing your threats head on in that moment, you are taking a step back, retreating from the fight, and allowing the things that you've learned along the way to integrate and then to go back and do it some more. And it's just that constant push-pull of interacting, integrating. But you learn from them because you already know what they teach. It is embedded in the both of you, and so you share the lessons. And that is the magic of their silence and of their stillness. But it really is just a reflection of what's already going on inside of your own being. The most growth happens when you just leave it alone. When you just fall back and you're silent and still, things just start to make sense. You can't force anything into existence. I wanted to say something else about how resonant nature and old land formations can be. It literally just reminds you of ancient wisdom that you've forgotten. It's like a reconnection to some reservoir of knowledge, genuinely. I haven't really explored the idea of multiple lifetimes. I don't really know how I feel about that, but I do believe that energy is reused. It has to be reused, but like, it's been a lot of places. Part of your energy probably is also of those places and from those places, like old mountainscapes and stuff. On Earth, going to those places, it just really reminds you of a power that you have. It reminds you of like, that is me, I am of that, you are of me. Like, it's that sort of thing. It's weird too, because even going to those places, no matter how much time you spend there, if you leave and you come back to how the brain was existing before you went, you'll forget the knowledge that you gained while you were there. It doesn't stay unless you practice it. Also, in case that wasn't clear, what I mean is whenever you reconnect with a reservoir and you peer into almost like a vast ocean of knowledge, you connect with it and you exist in it and you are there with it because you are of it. And whenever you leave, you're no longer existing in it because you're no longer there. And so you ultimately kind of go back to your default like life mode and not your ancient wisdom mode. But your like ancient wisdom mode can be reactivated given your intention with your own practice, whatever your practice is. So practicing keeps it keeps that like door open and keeps your access to the reservoir available. That's what I mean, in case that didn't make any sense. Because the bottom line is this reservoir is within you as well, as that's just like an easier way for you to access it because it's not buried by the rest of your life. And that you was very direct, just to make it clear. Anyway, thanks for watching, for having a conversation with me. This is basically what I do in my own brain all day. So it's fun to have an outlet for it as well, because I really like talking about these things. It's all I think about. And so it's fun for me. And I would like to have more discussions like this and such. So yeah, peace out.